Hey, folks, we're still here at ng-conf. I'm here with Manfred, and you spoke earlier today, right?
Yeah, I spoke about performance tuning today.
Awesome. I've heard a few people giving talks about performance tuning. So
Uh, Seems to be a huge topic. I think a lot of people are building huge applications with Angular, and hence they are interested into performance tuning.
yep, absolutely. And some of it's interesting. It seems like there are certain angles that people take on it. But if you're loading your Angular app off the internet, there's latency and all kinds of other things that come into play, and then just your application in Angular in general.
Yeah.
And the way that it performs once it has everything it needs to do its job.
Yeah. A lot of things involve the performance. There is not the one and only knob you have to push. There are a lot of knobs, a lot of buttons you have to take in consideration.
Awesome. So what were some of the things that you covered in your talk?
Well, I've started with my favorite topic. It is lazy loading. I really like lazy
yeah.
loading because it is quite easy when you respect it from the beginning, and it really helps you with the start performance of your application.
That makes sense. You essentially don't download anything you don't need right off the bat.
Yeah, that's the case.
Yep. And so then everything just spins up, and then as you need other things, they get loaded in.
Yeah. Of course, it has a drawback because lazy loading means postponing work. You are doing it later. And that means that you have a slightly delay at runtime when the user needs it. But for this, we have preloading. We can use lazy loading together with preloading so that Angular starts with the lazy loading until the application has loaded.
Right.
So we can use the user think time to lazy load everything else.
That makes sense. So essentially what you're saying is that it loads everything it needs just to start the application and get somebody to the point where they can use it.
Yeah.
And then if there's basically downtime where it's not processing something, it can take that time to pull everything else in before they need it.
Yeah, that would be possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are even folks out there in the community that have created an own preloading strategy that is possible. You can hook into Angular, and they are using something like the CPU idle event that is available in some browsers.
Very cool. So you get your lazy loading, you pull everything in. A lot of these big apps are still going to have some performance issues. So what do you do next?
Yeah, I think the next thing you should draw into consideration is something like on push. So when it comes to runtime performance, when it comes to data binding performance, on push is the way to go.
Okay. And what does on push do exactly?
Yeah, normally Angular checks each and every component after each and every event.
Oh, wow.
And this is normally not an issue because Angular is doing this in a very smart way. They are even creating good codes that can be optimized by the browser's virtual machine for this. But when you have a lot of events that are triggering on a regular basis, and when you have a lot of bounce data, then this is just too much.
Right.
And with on push, you can say, hey, Angular, skip this component until I tell you that this component has a change.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it just makes a little less bookkeeping per event that it has to do.
Yeah. It's a bit more I have to do as an application developer, and it's a lot of work Angular does not need to do.
Right. That makes sense. So what inspired this talk?
What inspired this talk? So a lot of my customers are building huge enterprise software products. And at a specific point in time, they have to deal with performance issues. And that's why I've concentrated on this topic. It's also part of my in-house workshop, of my advanced in-house workshop.
Cool. So do you do training for your job?
Yeah. That's my job currently. I'm doing training and consultancy. And so I'm seeing a lot of rough things that are issues for the customer. And that's really exciting because I don't like to work on regular stuff. I really like to work on rough stuff, on stuff that is a bit of a challenge. And I really like it to develop together with them a solution.
Yeah, that makes sense. So first of all, I'm just going to take a quick break and thank the sponsor of these interviews, Kendo UI, paid my way here. Not that it was that far. I live in Utah. But they paid for all this setup and stuff. So big thanks to Kendo UI for setting this up. If you're looking for visual components or kind of common components that you need for your applications, Kendo UI provides all that stuff. And why build it yourself? Let them maintain it, and then you can just use it. So I want to thank them. So tell me a little bit about your background then with Angular. How did you get into Angular, and how long have you been doing web development like this?
Yeah, good question. I'm doing web development since the late 90s. I think I've started to do it on a professional way in 98. And back then I've played around with Perl, as we all did.
Right.
And then I've landed in a company that has done ASP, classical ASP. And so we moved to ASP.NET some times later. So when I started as a consultant, I focused on server-side.NET, namely ASP.NET and web services and so on. And at some point in time, I've seen that I need something else for the front end.
Right.
And I've also seen that the good old jQuery stuff doesn't work. And that's why I've looked at Angular, and I was really amazed by it. And then Angular 2 came out, and it provided so much stuff that I decided to completely switch over to the client side and to just do Angular.
Gotcha. Now, the company you work for, is that your own company that you do training with, or are you with another training company out there?
Yeah, it's my own company.
Okay. And are you specifically training around performance, or are there other aspects of Angular that you teach?
I have several courses. I think the course that is booked most of the time is the Essential course, where I'm focusing 3 days on Angular, where I also try to explain how Angular works beyond the covers.
Right.
I think that is quite essential to prevent some pitfalls and to know how or why Angular is behaving this way and not that way. And another course that is quite popular nowadays is my Advanced Enterprise course.
Right.
It's just a bunch of advanced topics interesting for people that are creating huge enterprise software products, things like architecture or performance or even authentication.
Right. Makes sense. So how long was your talk, or was it more of a workshop?
Yeah. So it lasted 2 hours.
Okay.
And I took the first 30 or 40 minutes on presenting stuff. And for the rest, I've prepared a bunch of labs, and the people had the opportunity to go through those labs and to try everything out.
Very cool. One thing that I'm curious about, at what point do you start worrying about performance? Is it when you notice that there's a problem? Because it seems like a lot of apps are just going to be small. It's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So I think it really depends. For instance, when it comes on push, then on push is not a free lunch. You have to take care about some things.
Right.
You have to use observables. You have to make use of immutables. And especially using immutables is nothing we are used to.
Right.
We have to force ourselves to not mutate objects because this is what we've learned over the last 20 years in the area of object orientation. And so some people say, hey, I'm just using on push when I need it as an optimization technique. And other people that have embraced this functional paradigm, this reactive paradigm, are saying, no, I'm not discussing. I'm using it all the time because I want to guarantee that I have the best performance ever.
Right.
So it depends a bit on your background and a bit upon what you like to do. When it comes to other stuff, let's say ahead of time compilation or let's say lazy loading, I would recommend to respect this from the beginning.
Oh, really?
Because when you respect it from the beginning, it isn't that difficult. And you get so much, not for free, but you get a lot of things with very less effort.
Right. Yeah, I typically do the ahead of time compilation just because it's a step, and then I take what I built and I deploy it, and it's easy. But yeah, I haven't done a whole lot with lazy loading. So if I have an Angular app and I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, this could perform better, is there a way to build lazy loading into it at that point, or is that really hard?
You can squeeze it in at a later point in time. Perhaps there are some issues. One issue might be a lazy loaded module has a dependency injection scope of its own. This isn't true for a not lazy loaded module.
Right.
That's one thing you have to draw into consideration. But on the other side, when you are using patterns like for a root, for a child with your models, then you should be on the safe side.
Right.
Another thing is that when you are going with lazy loading, you need an own route that is triggering lazy loading. So it would be a good idea to define a prefix for all your routes in a module.
Right.
And this prefix could become this route that is triggering lazy loading.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. So one last thing that I've been trying to help people do in these interviews with some of the speakers and instructors for the workshops is just help them identify a little bit more with the people who are doing the presentations. And this comes out of mainly just, I come to these events and then I wind up meeting people in person and I realize, you know what? They're people. They're not just people who appear when we talk about code, but you have a real life outside of Angular and outside of code. So what does that look like? I mean, what do you spend your time doing when you're not writing code?
Yeah, good question. So since 20 months, I have a little baby boy.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I really love him, and he is really funny. He is currently discovering the world.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see how this neural network is growing day by day. That's a cool thing. And when it comes to other things, I'm quite a lazy person. I like to go to the cinema. I like good movies. I like also good storylines.
Right.
And that's why I currently like Netflix more than Hollywood, because Hollywood is showing and Netflix is telling. And this is really something I like.
Very cool. If people want to see what you're working on these days, I'm assuming you're on Twitter, you have a blog, things like that. Where is all that stuff?
I think the best thing to get in touch with me is using Twitter, because I'm throwing everything I'm doing on Twitter. When I'm blogging new things, I'm throwing it on Twitter.
Right.
When I'm speaking at conferences, then I'm tweeting about it. So Twitter is the, I think, best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. What's your Twitter handle?
It's Manfred Steyer. It's just my name without separation characters or special characters.
Okay. Can you just spell that out for people? It'll be on the YouTube video as well, but just to make sure.
Yeah, it's Manfred, like man and Fred. I paid it home to my parents. And the last name is Steyer. It's Steyer.
All right. Great. Well, thank you for coming and talking to us for a few minutes.
It was a pleasure.
I encourage people to go look at the ng-conf channel and find the video that Manfred did. I'm assuming your workshop will be up there with all the other ones. So
it has been recorded, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks. It was a pleasure.